Hello neighbors, it's Brad here at eTrailer, and today we're taking a look at installing the TowSmart Trailer Hitch Receiver on a 2024 Kia Sportage. Now this is what your hitch is going to look like when it's installed on your Sportage, and it's a really nice look because it's going to be a hidden cross tube, meaning the only thing that you're going to see is going to be the 2" by 2" receiver tube opening. And being that it's 2" by 2" is a really great size. It's kind of the standard when it comes to trailer hitches. So when you're picking a ball mount, a bike rack, or cargo carrier, you're gonna have tons of options to pick from. Now, all of those are gonna stay in place with a 5/8 pin and clip. Now, this does not come with the hitch. Many times though, when you pick up an accessory, they'll have the pin and clip included. If you plan on leaving your accessories on the back of your vehicle long term, you might want to look at a locking pin and clip. It becomes a good deterrent for someone that's just walking by. They can't just take your pin out and take that accessory with them. A rolled style safety chain loop will allow you to hook up safety chains if you plan on pulling a trailer. Standard S-hook goes on there no problem. Even a larger clevis style, you'll be able to attach with ease. And speaking of towing, this has some pretty serious capacities. It has a gross trailer weight rating of 4,500 pounds, which is going to be the weight of the trailer plus the accessories loaded onto it. Now, it's important to check the vehicle's owner's manual to see what it's capable of towing before just putting 4,500 pounds and hitting the road. You should also check your ball mount and any other components you'll be using. Take the lowest number across the board to stay safe. Now, as far as tongue weight, it's also really impressive at 675 pounds, and that's going to be the downward pressure on the inside of the receiver tube opening. So that accounts for a lot of your suspended accessories, bike racks, cargo carriers, and with 675 pounds, that's going to be a 4-bike rack loaded up or a cargo carrier on vacation. And don't really worry too much that you're going to overload that. Now, when you choose a bike rack or cargo carrier, some of them can be folded into a vertical position to save space, which is a really nice feature, but you want to make sure that it's going to be able to work with your Sportage. So measuring from the center of our hitch pin hole to the furthest point of our fascia, it's about 6 inches. So you might want to look at something with a slightly longer shank, and that way you can still fold that up. Now, keep in mind, you're probably not going to be able to open up your hatch, and it may block your camera, but you can always fold that back down if you need access, or when you're loaded, you're going to have things blocking your camera anyway. So just something to keep in mind. And as far as ground clearance goes, from the top of the receiver tube opening to the ground, this one's pretty solid, coming in at 14.5 inches. And that's important. A lot of your accessories, you want to make sure if they're suspended ones, they're not going to hit the ground as you go up inclines or over large bumps. 14.5 is a pretty solid clearance to not have to worry too much. It's still something you want to keep in the back of your mind, but that measurement's going to be really helpful if you do plan on pulling a trailer. You can determine that rise or drop necessary to get your trailer nice and level. Best way to do that, get your trailer set up, level, measure from the ground to the top of the coupler, take that measurement and then compare it with our 14.5 inches, and you can determine the rise or drop necessary to get your trailer as level as possible. Now, when it comes to installation, this one isn't terribly hard to do. There's going to be an underbody panel that you're going to remove, and unfortunately it doesn't go back up, but you really can't see it. You just need to make clearance for that hitch to go up. Other than that, you're really just going to be sliding this up into place, bolting it down, tightening and torquing those bolts. And you could be able to knock this out, I would say, in about half hour, maybe a little bit longer. You can do it in your driveway or garage, and it only really requires a 17mm socket and maybe a trim panel tool. But if you're doing this on your own, please let us know how it went, if you have any tips or tricks, and also how you're using your hitch. But if the install is kind of worrying you and you're kind of maybe not going to get a hitch because of it, don't let it hinder you. Having a hitch on the back of your Sportage really opens up the vehicle as to what you can do and what adventures you can go on. So if the install is going to be a problem for you, maybe you don't have the tools, the place, the time, or even the want to do the install, you can find someone close to you by using our dealer locator. And that way you can find an installer that can get your hitch installed so you can be out on the road. To begin our installation, we're going to start on the lower portion of the fascia where there's a small underbody panel with 4 plastic push pins that we're going to remove. And there's going to be slots on all of them, so using either a trim panel tool or a flathead screwdriver, pop out that center section, and then the rest of it should come with it. Keep these in a nice organized spot, if you plan on putting these back in later. So we'll get these removed. Now on the back side, there's these clips, and you can get your hand to kind of rotate these and take them down. The other option is if you just pry on the tab, it's basically just kind of holding this in. you can get this to pop out. So I'll get this one here and then just kind of hold pressure. And then as you go along, you can use a flathead screwdriver to just pry this in, because really all it does is just snap in place. So if you can't get those out by hand, this is another option. And then we'll get our last one here. And with that panel out of the way, we're about ready to get our hitch raised up, and you might want an extra set of hands. It can get a little bit bulky. And our goal is to get one bolt on each side started. It'll hold the hitch up, making the rest of the installation a lot easier to feed that hardware in. Now we have conical teeth washer. Those teeth need to bite into the metal of the hitch, so just get these all prepped like this. That way when we raise them up, we can get these started. And it does get a little bit tight by the exhaust. If you want to, you could remove that rubber isolator with just a pry bar or a long flathead screwdriver, but if you just kind of wedge this over, you really don't have to lower that exhaust. And then just slide this up over the frame and try to get the hole on the bottom side aligned, or you can do the side, either way, but this one's right here. So I'll just get this started and do the same thing on the other side. And that way our hitch will hold itself up. Now I struggled to get this hitch to really draw up to those holes, and there's a couple ways to kind of get around that. You can, if you have a vise, just bend those tabs out on the hitch a little bit, and that should open it up, allowing you to draw it up. You can use a floor jack, and a lot of times that'll help as you raise it up, just kind of draw that up. And that's what I did here. I used a pull jack and raised it up enough to where I could get a few threads started on our bolt. And then I used an impact to draw that up. It's going to be a 17mm socket to do that. So make sure that you get it all drawn up, and that's going to allow you to get the bolts in on the side of the frame. So with that raised up, now you can get the bolts in place, and we'll start getting these tightened down with that 17mm socket. On the passenger side, it's a little bit tight here because of the plastic panel. So getting a socket and a ratchet on here might be tricky. I'd recommend using a ratcheting wrench if you can, and snug those down. And once it's drawn in, you should be able to get that socket on there for when we get our torque wrench. Now, if you don't have a ratcheting wrench, you can just use a standard wrench, but you could also take this panel off. It's very similar to that underbody panel with the clips here and some plastic push pins, and that's really going to open it up for you. It's kind of dependent on what tools you have and what you want to get into. Now we'll come back with that same socket and a torque wrench and get all of our hardware torqued down. A lot of times I try to do the bottom ones first, so it draws it all the way up, and then doing the side ones. So again, 17mm socket. Torque settings are found in the instruction manual. And if you need a torque wrench, we have them here at eTrailer, but you can generally go to an auto parts store and rent one for free. And this is going to be an important step, because as you're towing down the road, you want to make sure that the hitch is going to be, obviously tight enough to be able to do that, but also not too tight, because you can put stress on those weld nuts if you over tighten it. So torque wrench makes light work of having to guess how tight to go. Now with all of our hardware properly torqued down, you've officially installed your hitch, and you may have noticed that that underbody panel is not going to go back in place. It just doesn't have the clearance on the back end for it to still be usable with our hitch in place. So you can do whatever you want with it, but it will not be going back on the car. So all that's left to do now is load up your accessories, put in your pin and clip, and hit the road. And that was a look and installation of the TowSmart Trailer Hitch Receiver on a 2024 Kia Sportage.